Hello, hello, hello! Welcome to Did You Know That? Live from my office shack here. So I'm sure, like all of us, working from home. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to have a fun ride. For those of you that just join us, I'm sure you can see there are streams happening daily on our channel here. And specifically, us, the Pixologic crew, is going to be jumping in streams on a daily during Monday through Friday. Hola, Fernando. What's up, Dardronco? How are you? Okay, first important thing is working from home, you got to stretch out first, right? You got to stretch, make sure you're working. I don't know why it's any different than working from an office space, but when you're working from home, seems to be stretched. It's probably most likely because you're not used to working from home, so your office space at home is a little different. What's up, Jimmy? How are ya? Winston, how you doing? And then, of course, everyone, you got to have water. You got to be able to, have some water. Hey, Stefano, how are you? Welcome to the stream. Right, so make sure you hydrate yourself, eh? It's very important. So this stream, we're going to be looking at particular things. So I'm going to be streaming kind of two segments throughout these next coming month or so. So this Tuesday segment, I'm always going to stream Tuesday now for the rest of April at 3 o'clock. You can see on the page, there's other streams happening tomorrow. You got Joseph the Man We Drust going tomorrow. You got Solomon Blair going on Thursday. And you got Joseph again on Friday. For those that weren't aware, yesterday our man Daisuke went from Japan and he was doing a lot of stuff in ZBrush Core. So I want to first check everyone's audio and check everyone's video as far as making sure everyone's good and getting everything they want. Everyone can hear me. I'm assuming yes, because people... Well, Jimmy, I'm back. I'm back now, streaming every week and sometimes twice a week. Okay, so I'm excited to be here with you guys. And so this stream, this Did You Know That stream, I'm going to focus on a particular feature, and I want to focus on a feature that allows you pretty much to create anything from scratch. Okay, and I really want to walk through this feature. And what I'm referring to is the Vdm brushes. Okay, so I want to be able to show you guys how you can literally just take a base mesh that's very simple and we can start going crazy and adding details. And then we're going to dive in a little bit more and go into the advanced options of this, in essence, how to make my own brushes, what's a good way to make your own brushes to make sure that you are getting the result you want when you go apply it to the model. So, and of course, for those that are used to me, my streams are full of tangents. What's up, 22 Bigs? So we're having a lot of tangents. But what I'm really here for is you, the users. Right? Or if we want to go this route, the 80s version, the users. So for those that haven't also never been with me, get used to loud, obnoxious, look up here. That probably just woke you all up right now. Throw a little bit of that in this stream from time to time. So I just want to get you guys prepped for what we're doing here. Okay? So can you guys just throw a yes or yeah, thumbs up in your chats that you can hear me fine and that you're obviously, I know you're seeing the picture fine because I'm seeing the stream fine, but I can't play the audio because we'll have an echo. Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, so let's get going on this. So what we're going to be looking at, and I want to kind of show how we can make our own brushes. So these chisel brushes in here, which are actually Vdm brushes. And in a way, this is a 3D mesh inside the brush that's going to allow us to do certain things, right? And I'm going to do a little comparison at the beginning too, talking about the difference between these and say like an insert mesh brush. It's really simple. We're going to walk through a little bit in here. All right, Specky. I like Specky Nation. Already doing the look up here. Yeah, I mean, yes, I love it. So let's first start with just getting a base mesh. Okay, so Obviously, we can use this anime head if you wanted to, which I'm finding this obviously right inside of Zbrush. So it's in my light box, and it's a default project right here. And by all means, follow along. Follow along. Okay, so, but one thing that I like to do is maybe just get more of a humanoid. Okay, this is obviously an anime head. And let's do a guy. So I'm going to double click on the demo head. And I'm going to say, no, I don't want to save any of my shavings. Okay. I'm going to delete up the head so it's just a little bit more smooth. It's not really going to matter that much. Okay. And I'm going to just say, you know what? Let's come into our subtools. So we have our head, we have our eyes, and our mouth. Okay. So I'm going to tell ZBrush, hey, let's go ahead and merge these all together. Okay. So I'm just going to open up my merge. And I'm going to say merge down. Hey, you know, because I'm here and I had a support question come through this week, so something I want to throw out there so everyone's aware of this. When you guys are using these merge options within the subtool palette, don't forget about there's options to those merges, okay? So there's a weld option and a UV option. Okay, so the UV option, you're turning this on for if you have subtools with already UVs on them, and then you're starting to merge subtools down and you want to keep your UVs. So you just turn that on. That's what tells ZBrush to do that. And the welding option is, hey, if I got subtools where there is border vertexes lining up, I want those vertex points to line up. I.e., as an example, if we delete these subdivision levels and let's just split this head off. Yeah, let's go a little bit lower. Let's go something like that. Okay, so I'm going to just split hidden. Okay, so in this case now, we've got a top subtool, and then yes, people, this is tangent fill right now happening. Tangent! I gotta come up with a great face word for when I throw on that tangent button, so you guys know I'm throwing tangents out there. So this is the top of the head now, obviously, and these are like the shoulders. So the difference here is, when we're gonna go merge, okay, that weld button is telling it to weld the vertex points, okay? So that top head's selected right now, and the bottom's not. So if I have that on, when I go and say, go ahead and merge down, all ZBrush is doing is seeing, okay, the vertex border of the head lines up with the vertex border of that shoulders, and wherever those points line up, I'm going to weld those. So obviously now when I go and do things like smoothing and stuff like that, I'm good to go. It's all welded together, okay? If I turn that off, you wouldn't have that. I would start getting a separation when I go ahead and merge down. So then obviously the one next to it is UV, which is just saying if I have UVs on the subtools that I'm merging, just make sure you weld those together. And by all means, yes, I'll ask away any questions. That's the point of this stream too. I almost want to change the name of this stream from Did You Know That to just Paul's Crazy Tangents, because this is pretty much what I want to use this stream for. I want us to just come together right now on the stream. Yes, right. I can sing not so well. Okay. Okay, is that possible getting the same render quality we get from Keyshot inside of ZBrush? Just for the record, I watch you ask ZBrush render class to Photoshop, but I still need to know. So, okay, so ZBrush is going to be able to give us some amazing renders, right? It's not photorealistic to the ability that you can get in Keyshot. Okay, so there are certain things they have in Keyshot that we don't have in ZBrush and Renderer, because it's just a rendering package. They're just focusing on rendering, you know, so they'll have caustics, ray tracing. We won't have, say, something like that, but not to say you can't get fantastic renders out of ZBrush. I know a lot of artists, including myself, sometimes I'll just use ZBrush to kick out my render, and then I'm done. And I don't have to worry about maps and anything like that. Okay? So that's the difference. Okay, so to answer your question. The other questions coming in right now is merge, weld, is it the same as Boolean add? This is a great question. Okay, so yes, there is a difference to this. Okay, so this is definitely a Lisa needs braces moment for us. Oh, I love it. I'm gonna line it up so it's like Lisa's inside a ZBrush. Lisa needs braces moment. Okay, so you guys get it. So the difference here is when we were merge and welding, number one, here's the first thing. We've got a completely open mesh on the bottom, okay? When you're going to Boolean, one of the main rules that you have to keep in mind is things need to be watertight. So which means is I should be able to pour water in this model and then it would stay and the water would keep, right? That won't happen. So if I started pouring water, let's rewind. If I started pouring water through his eyes, you can see all the water would just fall out because there's no bottom. So that means it's not watertight. So number one, the Boolean options, they need to be watertight. Okay? So for this particular model, I can just come here to my geometry, open up modify topology, and I can say close holes. And now that's watertight. All right? Now, the other difference now and the benefit that the Booleans are going to give you, what's up, Sterling? How's it going? Okay, is the fact that you're going to be able to delete internal geometry. Okay, and then it'll weld no matter what if the vertex points don't match. Where the welding that we're talking about right now in the subtools, okay, when it's welding, the vertex points have to be identical. Okay, so what I mean by that is let's get something a little more simple so you guys can visualize this and everyone can have a complete understanding of this. I love this. I love going on tangents. It's just, I love it. I love it. I love it. I feel connection. Okay, so let's put a little bit more. Let's do 3 by 3 by 3. And let me make sure I don't need any subdivision levels. Okay, so we got a cube. You know what, let's go a little bit more. I think to play safe, just so you can really make sure you're grasping what we're talking about here. Okay, yeah, there we go. That'll work. Okay, so let's say we're doing this, okay? And I'm just going to change the polygroups right now. Okay, so we're going to split this. So we've got a top, okay, and we've got a bottom, right? So I'm just gonna duplicate this, and I'm gonna duplicate this, okay? And I'm gonna go ahead and just quickly throw this one in a folder, so we can just turn it off as unit. So now we've got this one, and we've got this one. So what I'm talking about is you can see these vertex points right here, they line up identical to the other subtool. Vatka, right? I love Tikro Vatka. So you see that they line up. So when I go to say, hey, let's go ahead and merge down with the weld, okay, it's lining those up and see they're all welded. So as I'm smoothing, you can see everything's welded together. Okay, now, the problem you will have that you could run into here is, let's divide the bottom one maybe once, okay? So you can clearly see now the top one is not as dense as the bottom one. All right, so when we go now to say, hey, let's go ahead and merge down and weld, okay, you'll see that only every other point is welded, right? Because these are not welded anymore. Because there's not the adjacent same vertex on the other side on the red part of the brick here, okay, where the green part has more vertex points along the border. Okay, so this is where you could have benefits, okay, when you are doing something like live booleans, right? So I'm going to throw this one in a folder too. I'm just going to rename this folder. I don't care what the name is. And then I'm going to insert, let's just throw any shape in this. So we've got it. Let's turn that on. Let's size this down and do this. Okay. So now we have watertight, okay? So the sphere is watertight and the cube is watertight. Now you can see the cube is not as dense as the sphere, okay? This is the benefit of live booleans now. That won't matter. We're going to be able to weld these and merge this together, and everything's going to weld together regardless of the fact that there's less points on this brick, or i.e. the cube, and the sphere. Okay, so if I do I'm just going to do a merge down without the weld, just so you guys can see it will merge down. Okay, and what you'll find out is you can see they're not connected now. There's no connection there at all. So what I'm going to do now is live boolean it. And instead of going through the boolean option of through here, through our subtool boolean, or I become a massive fan using our folder system for the live boolean, especially when I'm working on projects. Like you probably hear noise in the background right now. It's my 3D printer going. I use it a lot for stuff like that. So here is what I like to sometimes do, is merging everything. And that way I can right here and keep the same subtool. It can even be in the same folder structure. Click on my gizmo, which is the W key. W. Right? And then clicking on the gear. And then right in here, you're going to have a bunch of different deformers. And what I want to click is the remesh by union. That's actually running the boolean. And now you can, that is welded together. Okay, so this is now not touching any of the topology except where it needs to weld this with this. And the other benefit that we have here, let me turn on our display properties to double. You can see that it is in fact welded here, right? And it's gotten rid of the internal portion of that sphere. So that's some of the big differences between just using the merge subtool with weld and using something like live booleans. Winston, I've got a form too, and right now I'm printing some flex material. So here, I think this one's the most dry. So like I'm printing some tires right now, so you can see, it'll flex. I haven't taken the supports off yet. Right? It's pretty cool to have different materials in there. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy this. Comics Legends, what's happening? Yeah, you betcha. We're going to do, that's the point of these streams is today I'm talking about this brush and doing some tangent stuff, and the next week I'm going to talk about a completely different topic. Okay? I just saw another question come through. Hold on, let me get to it. How do you change subtool with shortcuts? Ah, great question. 22 bigs. And then I saw a Z-sphere question from Facebook. Why do we create Z-spheres and a mesh is made out of the subtool palette? Why can't it be reused? It can be reused. The rig can 100% be reused with Z-spheres for sure. Okay, so to the one question first. So is there a way, hold on, where did that go? The foldering shortcuts. Okay, so what I've been doing is using shortcuts to cycle through the subtools. So instead of me going over here, right, and instead of me just alt-clicking on the subtool that I want, I just been cycling through the subtools so you can see like the heads now, selecting it now, the eyes. Here, let me go forward like this so you can see it better. And then now the head. Here, I'll turn off lines. Okay, so what I'm using right now is the up and down arrow keys on your keyboard. Right? So there's none of that yet. Now, no, there is no Boolean option to auto close and look for closing holes and just close it off for you. No. Okay, so that's how I was doing that. And creating a folder shortcut was just Control F, and that'll create a new folder for you. Okay, so because the head was selected, that's what's in here. And then now I can drag this over. But really, people, how I prefer to make my folders, just again to give you another example here. Okay, you got something like this where we've got 11 subtools. And I want to create like a folder with a chunk of him in it. I prefer using the gizmo way to make my folders. Okay, so it's just a faster way. I found it. Good evening, Dougie. Yep. We're just because I normally don't stream on Tuesday, so 3 o'clock is just a different time for me to go. So I preferred method for me for this. Again, this is just preference, all right? I like to use the gizmo with the stacking subtools, i.e. Joseph's pizza boxes, i.e. I added to that, are you throwing a party and how many people are coming over? You're going to need more than one pizza. i.e. think about the pizza boxes as the subtools. What's up, Render Me Gone? Okay, so I like this is because I can use the selection ability. So I'm holding down Control Shift and I'm just dragging, and you can see that whatever I didn't drag over becomes kind of rendered with like a line. That means it's not selected. So you can see as I move this, those pieces stay still, right? And if I'm like, oh, I selected more than I wanted, I hold down the Control Shift and I just tap on the meshes that I don't want to be a part of that selection. And again, in Control Shift, tap on the goggles. So you can see now really it's only the backpack, the shirt, the vest, and his shoulder pad, right? And then now that I'm in this state, when you guys do a Control F, or if you hit the new folder, it's telling you, hey, you're in multiple transpose. Do you want to create a new folder? I'm going to say always yes, because I like that. And then I'm just going to rename this Dude. And then now you can see over here in my subtools, I now have a folder that's called Dude. And you see it says 4, okay? Because those are the 4 items that were in there. The shirt, the vest, the backpack. And then now at any time, I can click this little gear, transpose set, and I got back that selection once again. This is just my preferred method. It's also a quick way for me to add other things to the folder if I want to, right? Because now that I have this, all I have to do is, oh, and you know what? Now I want the gloves and the wristbands to be a part of this. Okay, we're going to go ahead and make that a new folder, and now Dude, and then now you see it's 6 subtools. So it's just a preferred way of working for myself. You can, of course, just click and drag in, and then now it's in the folder as well. What's up, Jose? Yes, wash your hands. Very important. Okay, so there's your question for that. Okay, now let's reel it back to our topic of the day. So our topic of the day is trying to make a character or trying to make new pieces using just one brush, in essence. I want, in essence, challenge us. And this is a great way to learn something. I know this has helped me challenging myself for sculpting. You know, I might say, hey, I'm just going to sculpt 10 ears today, and that's it. And do like a dog ear, a human ear, elf ear, another human ear. And it just challenges me a little bit more, and then so forth and so on. So this is good to do. So this is a challenge for you all, is can you make one brush that's going to give you everything you need to be able to make a character from scratch, right? So we'll just start with the base mesh. So I'm going to start with the demo head, okay? It's just something I'm going to go ahead and start with. I'm going to go ahead and say everything in here, let's just merge the folder, okay? So now at least I have this, but then I have a merged version. So this is why I've really started using the folder system a little bit more, is I still have the separate subtools if I ever want to go back to them, and then I have the merged version. So I do this a lot when I'm designing, especially if I want to weld things together, especially if I'm doing something for 3D printing. I'll use this because then if I don't like what the result is, no biggie, I go back to one of the subtools and change the subtools. So it's a pretty easy thing to do. Hi, side effects. Good to have you back. Thanks for saying hi. I can't make it out well. Jeremats. My other monitor is kind of blurry because the resolution is really bad. Okay, so I want to prep this now for what we're going to start doing. So I don't really want a nose, mouth, eyes, ears. I don't want anything. I just want a basic, just shoulder structure, head structure. So for me, what's become very beneficial, and again, I have used this for 3D printing as well, is Sculptress Pro. It's going to allow me to kind of destroy things if I want to very fast. Right? And so if you do this with a little bit of combination of our old friendly trusty Dynamesh, right? I can start doing a Dynamesh here, and then now go through here and just get a basic head structure. And then the beauty of the Dynamesh, to one person's question, is obviously it needs to be watertight. Okay, so this does have an automatic hole closing ability in Dynamesh. So I really like this because it just gives me a very simple way to get a kind of a base mesh that I'm looking for. Maybe in here. Yeah, there we go. I'll get rid of some of that muscular form. Something very, very, very simple. Okay, good enough. Like, I got at least a little brow there, so I know where I have a general idea where the eyes are going to go. You know what? I'm going to smooth out the head even more because too much of the hair has stayed. So I'm just going to just give it more of a roundness in there. Yeah, there we go. I like that a little bit more. Yeah, there. They're happy little trees. Happy little trees. Okay, and I'm going to come out of Dynamesh mode because I don't need it anymore. I really just want to turn Dynamesh mode on so I can quickly retopologize on the fly with the Sculptress Pro option. Okay? So now that I have this, I've got this mesh that's Dynamesh with some triangles. Okay? So what I want to do is get a better quality mesh, because the one benefit to these brushes that we're going to look at is these brushes can be used on subdivision levels. So I'm definitely going to want to use subdivision levels, and I'm going to get into this stream and showing you why that is important to understand, okay? So we're going to Zremesh this now. So I'm just going to stick with the defaults. It's good enough. So I'm going to turn on Symmetry. I'm done with Sculptress Pro, and then I'm just going to click on this and tell it to remesh. Bingo bango, good enough. That's it. That's all I'm looking for. I'm just looking having nice quadded clean topology, good enough for me to sculpt on, because I know I'm going to want subdivision levels. Okay, so here's a point where I said, you know, there's a difference between, say, the insert mesh brushes and the VDM brushes, which is our topic for today, the VDM brushes. Okay, so this is definitely a look up here, look up here, caca, caca. Okay, so when we are using insert mesh brushes, this allows us to just grab anything, right? So I can grab an object here. I can say, oh, let's grab some spheres, yay, and draw out a sphere, right? And I can reposition it. Okay, I can change the parameters and say, okay, that's now going to be the ear for this guy, right? And then up, should probably put a little rotation on that, maybe. There's his ear. Now, it's nice that I have multiple polygroups. So there is still, the sphere is one mesh and the head is one mesh. Okay, the thing we have here is, what if I wanted to actually look like an ear, where it's not just, okay, I'm making a sphere that's representing the ear, then me as an artist, I now go and say, okay, now I'm going to go start sculpting out an ear, and then just start working on this, right? And start pushing in on this, right? And you start building your ear, right? You guys get what I'm talking about through here, right? Right, so that's a beautiful ear. Okay, so there's a process here, right? You gotta add it, and then you're gonna start sculpting on it, and then you'll start adding subdivision. It's not welded, right? So you're not gonna get a great transition through here to here. The clay brush will definitely help with that. So as I sculpt across, so you can definitely start slowly working that together so it looks like it is one mesh. Okay, so I want the ability to be able to, when I draw out an ear, I want an ear, right? And I want that ear to be there. Okay, and it's because it's a design part that I'm doing. I'm trying to figure out some maybe character, I don't know, the vampire, whatever it's going to be, some kind of creature. Okay, so insert mesh brushes are amazing because it allows us to just quickly insert anything, right? We can even grab something else like this model kit, and you can grab this and draw it out, right? And now you get this shape, and then I can cycle through them if I want to. Okay, so I can say, all right, this is great, but the problem is the minute you guys do this, where you're going to divide up, right? You're going to start dividing up things. Oh, here, let me delete those ears. I don't want them. Right, when you go to divide, okay, we're getting a smoother mesh, but now I can't use these insert mesh brushes. And yes, these are all being recorded, and they'll be up on our YouTube and our Twitch channel as well. Just getting some hydration. Okay, so they'll all be up there, right? So I don't want to use this. I want to start using now these, which now this, you can see it's very much the same. We've got these selected pieces along the top. I.e., so you guys know, this is some information for you for the who? The users. Okay, so in your preferences, okay, if you want to, in your interface, okay, there is a way to move your Imm selector. So we call this the Imm Viewer. So that thing that's going across the top right now. If you move this slider, depending on, you can have them to the right if you want. And this is just a personal preference, of course. You can have them along the bottom. And then, of course, you can have them on the left. So this is beneficial for, people, maybe people are left-handed. We'll want them right here on the left-hand side so they can click it maybe faster because they're already on the left. Or vice versa, right-handed, maybe you want them here instead of going up there. It's your world, man. It's your world. Okay? And if you guys ever want to see things bigger, by the way, click on this icon right here. So here I'm going to make my magnifier. This double arrow with these bars. Okay? If you click on those, you can go up and down. So make sure you just click right on. Right here's an undo. So you see, you'll know I'm selecting undo because you see it's telling me the undo I'm on. Okay? And then now this, see, I don't see an undo that I'm on, so I can adjust it. And to your question, Andres, no, IMMs don't work with divided meshes. They don't. Okay, so if I wanted to work with insert mesh brushes and see what the division was, this is why we made dynamic subdivs. Okay, so this right below is your dynamic subdiv that's now on, and I can say 3 levels, and if I'm switching to an insert mesh brush, okay, and I'm drawing something out, I'm seeing the divided version, but it's not really divided. Okay, so if we grab this one and draw that out, you see how that looks kind of more rounded? If I turn off the dynamic over here, you can see what it's really looking like. Okay, so this is one way you can work. However, don't freak out. Okay, do not freak out if you do have subdivision levels. Okay, because there's ways to get around. So as an example, I'm like, dude, you guys are just making smile right now. I'm gonna start making a cape when we get just flowing in the wind. Captain Tangent. Okay, so to this question, all right, let's grab a head again. I'm gonna load the demo head again. Okay, and this has got subdivisions. So we'll do a little bit of sculpture. I'm gonna reset all my brushes because I was messing with them. Okay, and let me switch to my clay buildup. So I'm building things up, yada, yada, yada. Yes, I'm having a good time. I'm feeling good. ZBrushing at home. By the way, that's a hashtag. So by all means, if you are all ZBrushing at home and you're sharing on any social medias, hit that hashtag ZBrushing at home, man. ZBrush at home. So we've been watching that, and a lot of people have been posting some pretty awesome stuff. Whatever. Abraham Lincoln beard. I don't know why it's always Abraham Lincoln. How about we just say it's from that era beard? Doesn't always have to be Abraham. Darn it. Could be anybody. Okay, so we're sculpting. We got subdivisions. Bye, Alan. You're leaving us already? Take it easy. Okay, so I've got now 4 subdivision levels, and using an insert mesh brush is going to be problematic. Okay, so I'm going to switch to, let's start using this model kit one, and I want to use that piece, and I want to put it on his head. Okay? So, of course, when I go to draw this out, it's going to tell you got subdivision levels. So one thing you could do, All right, and okay, I'm scared to show this because every time I show this, and for the years I've taught ZBrush and the years I've taught ZBrush to beginners, this is where it always goes a little south. Okay, Alan, you're here for life. I like it. Okay, so I'm going to turn my hat backwards because this is going to get in a serious moment. I want to get in deep in here. Get in deep. What I can do, all right, is freeze my subdivision levels. Okay, let's just pause for a moment, literally, okay? Guys, when you click that, all right, please pay look up here. All right, this is like, I'm going to turn everything on that I possibly can turn on here to give you guys understanding. This is important to understand. You are now storing subdivision levels in like memory, think about it, okay? And they're stored there. ZBrush still remembers. What you guys don't want to do right now is start dividing up. Because now you've got two sets of subdivisions. You got one that ZBrush has stored, and you got one that now you're starting to divide up. So I'm only showing you this because if I freeze them, I can now draw this out, right? I can position this where I want it. Okay, clear my mask if I want to even. And click the freeze subdivision level button again. And you can see I get back my subdivisions, right? And I still got these, right? And then there you go. Beautiful. Beautiful stuff. I love it. Now, let's take this even one more step further. Let's go further with this. Let's undo this. Let's get back our subdivision levels that we have. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I want to rip this piece off the brush. So this is great. This is all leading the stuff we're talking about today. Okay, so in the brush palette, okay, there's two buttons right here. You see the to mesh and from mesh. We're going to be using these all day. Okay, so I'm glad it looks like Abraham Lincoln. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to say I want that piece that's in the brush, give it to me. So say to mesh. So in essence, take what's there that I have selected in my brush and give it to me. Give that to mesh, okay? So now that I have this, I'm going to do this. I'm going to turn off perspective so you guys can really get what I'm going to do here. So I want to delete this cap. Okay, so I'm going to do it this way. I'm just going to select out the back with Control Shift, and you can see now it's just the cap that's visible, right? Yeah, that's a great mixture. Abraham Lincoln as Hellboy. That would be an awesome... Or take take any president with any like superhero. So you got to like mix... That would be a fun challenge. President with superhero. Or even i.e. a villain, right? That way it opens it up even more for you. That'd be a fun challenge. Right, so I'm going to Control Shift, click and drag, and now I have this mesh. All right, I'm going to say delete hidden. Okay, and so what we have now is we have this. We've got this same thing, but it's open. Okay, and now I'm just going to say, all right, I'm going to click right here. I've already got this brush selected. So the name that it's going to get is right here. So I'm going to rename this. Let's see, we named it circular and underscore 15 underscore, I'm going to call this one open. Okay, so it's circular underscore open. Okay, so in here, you got the from mesh. What we're also going to start to be using, people, is this create menu. Okay, so this is really going to help us. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say from mesh. And what that's done is it's added this all the way at the end of this brush. So you can see how many we have here. Right, there it is. Okay? So what you can do, even if you want to put them in the same location, you can say, okay, copy the one mesh. Right? And then here's a quick way for you guys to get to the selections. Hit the M key, as in multiple, and it will give you this menu. Right? And then you can see them all together, right? And then that way you can look easier maybe for the one you're trying to find in here, right? It's just another way for you to go and select something. Right? So this is another way for you to go. And as you see, you scroll over, you get an icon on the right there. So it's just whatever way you want to, okay? So now that I've copied that one, wherever I am in this cycle, right? Wherever I want to be for this is now where I can put it. Right? So here's where it's selected. Okay? And then I can say brush, and it's saying paste append, paste replace, or paste insert. I'm going to say paste insert, and now I've got the open one, and I've got the regular one. So now I've got both of them right here beside each other. So this is just a great way to just quickly organize some things. Now, the reason why I'm doing this, let's go back to this Abraham wannabe Hellboy. Okay? So again, we're discussing how do I use insert mesh brushes with subdivision levels. Right? Which is bleeding right into the brushes we're talking about, VDMs. My goal is showing you here is you guys could literally just create 2 brushes pretty much and sculpt a complete character, no problem. Okay? So Andres, it's called Chisel Brushes because it was a new brush that we made specifically for these modes. And because that technology is also being used on these also chisel brushes here. Because it's chiseling into the surface. Think about it as if you had a chisel and then you're tapping. Right? That's what these brushes in essence are doing. They're chiseling into the surface. Because you're chiseling into subdivision levels. Okay? So, we're going to freeze this. Now, the different thing that I want to do here is I'm going to do a selection. So I'm going to select, let's go there. Let's deselect this, and deselect that. So I have those. You know what? And let's go bigger. I'm going to go bigger. I'll go a bit bigger. Yeah, let's go this big. So I'm just going to deselect some faces that I don't want in my selection. Okay, and you know what, to make it easier for me, I'm going to switch to lasso so I can select, say, something like that. Right? I'm going to make that a new polygroup. Okay, so now I've got a pink polygroup, right? So I'm going to select not this circular piece, but this circular piece. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the polygroup, which is that pink one, right? And then I'm just going to do like you guys do in Dynamesh, right? And then do that twice. And what you can see what's happened here is we welded this with this. So, oh man, all these tangents are just bleeding together nicely. Okay? So what this I've done here is, let me go backwards, is by me making this polygroup, and then drawing on it with an insert mesh brush that has an opening, I'm telling ZBrush to pay attention to that polygroup with that opening insert. And we put code in there that tells ZBrush, okay, control drag to get rid of your mask, and if you do it again, boom, it's all welded together. That boom didn't wake you guys up, and you can see it's welded. Everything is together. We're together. Okay, and now, if we click the free subdiv, right, we're going to get back that mesh, and then now we can, see, weld everything. We can play with this, and it's all welded together with multiple subdivision levels. So now it is definitely, it's almost like I've seen the Hellboy, but we could probably go even start going a little bit more Franken-Lincoln. Like a Frankenstein, Abraham Lincoln, Abe Frank. Whatever, I'm not going to come up with a name for it. Forget it. Stupid. All right, so you can see there's some steps there. Franken-Lincoln, there we go. Thank you, ProDrag. So I want to eliminate, say, all those steps, right? And I just want to come back to having a mesh like this. That's just, you know, it's divided up. Right? And then I want to switch to a brush. And in this case, this brush has things that I can select, right? So I've got an ear, and I can just draw out the ear. And then that's, oh yeah, nice big ears. And that is already welded. Right? There's nothing extra to do here. right? It's part of it. It's part of the mesh. It's there, right? And then so you can grab any ear that we want maybe in here. Maybe I want to do maybe a little elf ear instead, or spork ear if you want. And then there's animal ears you guys could do. That's, you know, maybe little fox, some fox ears, different dog's ears, maybe a big rabbit ear. Or now he's starting to look like a donkey. Oh. Okay, Wondered Mustard. Can you explain it in a way that even my 4-year-old puppy can understand? What part do you need me to re-explain? The welding with the inserts? Is that what you're talking about? Okay. Let me go back to him. I'm just going to undo back to this point. Okay, so forget the freeze thing, okay? I'm just giving you an extra thing here, right? The freeze subdivision, I'm just showing you a way that you guys, even if we have subdivision levels, I'm not ever done. I always have something maybe I can go down the road and do. Okay, so what we're doing here is I've got a polygroup. And what I'm telling ZBrush to do is replace that polygroup with the mesh I'm drawing out. So here, let's just do something funny. So maybe that'll also help with hitting it home a little bit more as well. So let's take this dog head and make it a new polygroup, right? So the head's a new polygroup from the body. So if I just grab any mesh, so right here, there's a mesh that's called Imm Primitives H. The H stands for a hole. Okay, so in essence, these are primitives that are half primitives. So the other half is missing. So if I say H cube, right, all I have to do is say draw on this dog anywhere on that polygroup of the dog. And you can see here, right, that there's an opening in this cube. There's a hole. Dear Liza, there's a hole there, right? So what I'm doing is clearing my mask, okay, and then telling ZBrush, do that again. But we've written code that understands if you're doing that again, we're seeing that as, oh, you want me to, in essence, delete the dog head and then weld the opening mesh, in this case the cube, with the rest of the body, right? So it's in essence doing this. And then deleting, right? And then coming here and saying delete hidden. And then now we need to go, like, say something like Zmodeler. And then I say bridge, 2 holes. Let's just say 1 line. I got to click here. And then I click here, right? That's in essence what we're doing. All those clicks with one swoop of the hand. And you can see the difference in the topology. We're using the Zremesher topology to make the weld for you happen. When did we add that? We added that welding feature, I want to say, about 9 years ago. That ability with the insert mesh brushes is super old. Maybe 8 years. Between 8 to 9 years. We did that, and I want to say in ZBrush 4R3 is when we put that. It might have been 4R2, but I'm pretty sure it was 4R3, which that came out like 9 years ago. So it's been there forever. We called that mesh fusion, is what we called it. So if you want to look up anything, just say ZBrush mesh fusion. That's what we called it. Okay, now coming back to our goat guy. So the benefit we're going to have now with these brushes you guys are starting to see is I don't need to even worry about subdivision levels. I don't need to freeze anything, right? I can click on anything and say, oh yeah, why wouldn't I want a dog nose on that guy? Yeah, right there. Yeah, perfect. Yes. Yes. Right? So you can have some real fun through here. Okay, now, the thing that you need to understand here is that what we're doing is we are sculpting the entire ear at once for you with one just click and drag of the brush, right? So instead of you as the user sitting there and sculpting an ear out, we're literally take that process. If I told you all, go sculpt an ear, and then that process is going to take all you guys different various amounts of times. Might take some of us 5 minutes, might take some of us 30 minutes, might take us 20 minutes. Now imagine all that being stored in a brush and then just being drawn out with one flick of the wrist. And that's what's going on here. Wow, look at that hat hair. Okay, so we're storing the mesh in the brush for you so you can have that flick of the wrist, right, ability. Now, with that said, we have this ability. Man, my throat is just getting dry. Okay, so with that said, the thing now we need to understand is these brushes. And what we're going to do, we're going to start creating some of our own brushes here, okay? I'm going to show you examples and show you the best practice for creating these brushes. And then we're going to sit there and try and make a character together if we want, okay? So you'll notice the ear is looking pretty good, but the dog nose, see, it's pretty faceted compared to the ear, right? And this is happening is the way these brushes are working is they are drawing on the existing topology. So that's one of the main differences between using, say, this technique with insert mesh brushes. Insert mesh brushes, you're actually adding new topology. There's no new topology being added here. It's just being drawn on top of your existing topo. Okay? So, the thing you have to understand here is you got to know what subdivision level you need to be sitting at to really get the full detail, say, of this dog's nose, right? So I don't have enough topology. So if I was to divide up, okay, and then we go and throw the dog nose on here, you can see now I'm starting to see more of the sculpt that was put in the dog's nose. Okay, and if I go up one more level, okay, you can really start to see the sculpting detail of the nose. Right? So, where you're sitting on with the mesh, subdivision level-wise, is going to become important. Now, the thing you got to think about for these brushes, it's not so much about this state. It's not so much about drawing out something that has all this crazy detail in it, and then you're good to go. We have other features for that. This is about pretty much taking you 80% of the way, sculpturally, right? To be able to just quickly kick some things out, and you can have multiple levels of detailing here. All right? So when you're doing this, you're good to go. So no, these brushes, Jimmy, will not work with Sculptress Mode. Okay, and we're going to get into that now, and you're going to see why all this is coming together, because we're going to start talking about now creating our own brushes. Okay? So come on, everybody. Follow along with me. Let's make a nose. So let's make a new nose. Let's make maybe some kind of witch's big nose or something like that, like a hook nose, right? Let's make one of those for us. You give me one second. I'm going to turn on my AC because it is hot in my office. Okay. All right. How's the sound? That's not ruining any of the sound for you guys, right? Or is it too loud? Just want to make sure you guys are still able to. I'm pretty loud and obnoxious, so I figured you guys would probably be good to go. I'm just sweating over here in my office. It's all good. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So everyone, I'm prepping you. I'm prepping you. Look up here. Look up here. Okay. This is going to be important. When you're going to want to start creating your own pieces to create your own library, you always, always, always must do it on a plane that has equal span topology. Let me say that again. Always has to be on a plane with equal displayed topology. Okay, so as an example, over here in the tool palette, this plane 3D right here, I click on that, and if I turn this polyframe mode on, you can see that it's just equidistant, right? So what I mean that is every single polygon is the same size. Okay, so this is what I like to use when I'm making the VDM brushes. In fact, I made all these in here except for that one right there. Joseph made that one. Okay, and I had a bunch more that I made because I just started going crazy with this. Started having a lot of fun. All right, so this is how you can start creating your own, and then we'll put them in more practice, and I'll show you some other techniques that I like to do with these brushes as well. Okay, so I'm going to make this a poly mesh, and then now you can see it's colorized. And I've got equidistant. So there is also in the light box, okay, so if you guys are in here, there is also in the project tab, in the miscellaneous, there are some other 3D planes here for you. Those are the same thing if you want, but I prefer using this. This is my preferred thing. It's there, it's easy, bada bing, bada boom. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I know I'm going to want to make multiple of these. So I'm going to just call this plane for now, and we'll duplicate it. So we'll just have different numbers, 1 through 5. Okay? So we'll turn everything off but the plane that I'm working on right now. So I'm going to start sculpting on this, and we're going to work in symmetry. And I want to start making a new nose. This is something completely different. Thanks, Damon. Thank you for those kind words. That's awesome. I'm glad you're enjoying. Right. So we've got this plane. Now let's just go at it and let's start sculpting some kind of nose. I like to use clay buildup and just start building on the surface on here, right? And build up the nose a little bit. Just start building that form that I'm looking for. So obviously, what's going to happen to us here is we do not have enough topology, right? Because it's pretty low, right? There's not a lot of topology there. So I'm going to divide up once. Okay, and then now, of course, you're going to get more topology now to sculpt, right? So, of course, my goal would be here is I'm going to divide up, and then I'm going to start playing more with this. And let's switch to the Move brush. Let's go from here. Let's make this be some kind of ugly, really ugly nose. Oh, yeah, there. Oh, yeah. Oh, gorgeous. I love it. Gorgeous nose. Who wouldn't want a nose like this? Yeah, let's put a little dent in there like that. Yeah. Okay. So then dividing it up, okay, is obviously going to give us some more topology. And then you can continue this process, right, of sculpting out what you want. So maybe I want to put a little bit more tension to that in there and have it come across like that, right? And maybe smooth it back a little bit. Hey, I'm making kind of some of my own little stylistic looking nose maybe through here, and clay that up. Put a little bump ridge in there, right? Let's say because the bone maybe be, it's got to be a bone structure in here, right? In that nose, it's just got a very weird character nose in here. Yeah, all right. Some kind of ugly bump thing going on. Now, even though we have the ability here to divide until our heart contents and or to what our current computers can manage, to whatever computer that you may be working on, that might not be the right answer, okay? The thing you're going to have to think about when you start to make these brushes, we are making these brushes with a 3D mesh. That this mesh is going to be put into a brush. So that means the more dense you make this, right, the bigger the brush size you're going to start to have. Okay? And that's important. Darn right, it's going to be a goofy nose. So, let me turn this back on. And you can see obviously through here and in here, the topology is not too bad, right? It's not too crazy. There's not some craziness going on. All right, so I want to clean this up because I want to put some detailing maybe in here a little bit, just refine that shape a little bit more, right? You can already say we've got a nose. Like, it's an ugly nose, but, you know, people would see this as a nose. It's really bad. But, darn it, I'm having fun. Let's make it be. Maybe that's, so, yeah, there, that's a little bit, it's a little bit better. Let's do something more like that. Okay, now, I want to have just a little bit more, because I want to maybe put some little bit more volume in here, maybe have some kind of other nice little detailing ridge that I was starting to put through here. Now I want to start adding that in all the places of the nose. So we've really stretched out, or I've really stretched out the front of this part. Gorgeous George. So what I want to do is clean this up. So we're going to have multiple ways to do this. So I want to walk through these because this is really crucial and this is important for when you're going to be making brushes like this. But this information I'm about to give to you is also extremely important just sculpturally as well, and it could save you for certain things. Okay? So in deformation, there are 3 types of relaxes. Okay? So there's a relax plain grid, okay? And then there's a morph to grid. Right? So morph to grid does this. Puts everything, I lose my entire sculpt, I'm back to the beginning. Right? That slider was made specifically for making these brushes. Because I was making them so fast that I didn't want to have to do the duplicating thing that I did. I just wanted to just keep going, right? So this allowed me to sculpt something. I could grab it, which I'm going to show you how to grab it here today. And then when I'm done, I say morph to grid, and bingo bango, I've got a nice clean grid again, but I've lost my sculpt. Okay? So I'm going to show you an advantage of that here in a little bit. Then you have relax plain grid. So I can move this all the way up, and you can see my topology is awesome through there right now. So you guys see that? That improved a lot. But what I don't like about this is sometimes it's too strong. And you can see in the topology, and look right through here. Right where my pen and cursor is. Look through here. You can see that the topology is kind of doing here. It's almost like an X starting to happen here. Right? So this is what we had. See how nice this was? And then now this is what we have. Okay, so this could be a problem for when we go to apply the actual brushes, which we're going to get into showing bad examples so we can all see about cleaning things up. Right? So, one thing you might want to do, obviously, is mask off the region that's important to you, right? And say, okay, keep that as is, and now do a relax, right? And you can see really what's happening. So I'm not getting everything that I want. So this is what I like to do, okay? I like to walk down a couple levels. Okay, so again, we're at the higher level. So right now, this is sitting at level 4, right? I'm just going to walk down. And then I'm just going to smooth this out a little bit. Just, that's enough. And I'll smooth this out. There, that's enough right in there. Okay? So I've smoothed this mesh out. And now what I want to do is get back my sculpt. Okay? And this is what I can do. In the subtool palette, in the projection, there's a button called Reproject Higher Subdiv. And you guys press that, and we're going to give you back your sculpt. But look at the topology. It is a ton better, right? So this is now what we have. And let's see what we had. Right? So this is what we had. Right? So you can see, look at that face right in there. Look how long that face is. We now have, in that span right here, we've got like 3 to 4 main faces in here, right? So there's 4 times the density in just this little area right here than there was right here, right? So this is a great way of relaxing things out, okay? So this, guys, this should be for anything now, right? So again, I told you this is going to be something you guys should be using regardless. This is why I like this feature, because I'm sure you have all ran into this before, where you're sculpting along, right? And I'm gonna grab a brush that I know destroys the topology really bad, and we'll give it a little bit more topology. We'll go here, and I'm gonna just pinch along here, and I'm gonna tell it to replay, 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 right? So I clearly got a beautiful pinch happening, but in there is just a disaster, right? And not only that, you all probably want to, okay, I want to just come in here and use some Vdm Standard and coming through here, and you can see what you get. It's not what you want. Okay, it's not what you want. All right, and now, Jimmy, to your question, why not just subdivide? Because you're using subdivide now as just your crutch to just get new topology. I'm showing you a way that's sculpturing more efficiently, where you might now, if we did, okay, so if we said you and I were going to do that same nose, and let's say we're going to take that nose to full detail, right, where I want like skin pores and small wrinkles and little bores on the nose, I guarantee you I'll have less number of polygons and less subdivision levels than you if all you're going to do is I'll just divide up. Because you got to remember, if you're going to divide up, you're doing it in multiples of 4, and you're doing it across the whole mesh. So you're also dividing in places you don't even really need to, right? So what I'm doing is showing you a way to relax that surface, get our topology. So in this case, right here, here's a prime example of what we're looking at. Jimmy, I'm so glad you brought this up. Okay, I'm so happy. What's the replay? The shortcut I did for that is the number 1 key. Okay, so how I replayed this, right? So let me switch back to the pinch. So how I did this, where I did the same thing again and again. This is the pinch brush that I'm going over and over and over again. And in the stroke palette and modifiers, there's a replay last. And you can see the default is 1. Okay, so to Jimmy's point in his question, okay, the topology is just getting bad, right? So doing, like I said, sculpting in Vdm Standard doesn't look good here. So obviously our mindset is to go, well, just divide up and divide up until we start getting what we want, right? I'm already at 6.2 million and I still don't have what I want, okay? So I want to be able to stay at where I am. So right now I'm at 393,000 polygons, okay? And now if we do what I'm talking about, where again, I've got 5 subdivision levels, so I'm gonna walk down a couple. I'm gonna walk down to 3, and then just smooth this out a little bit, like that. Okay, and now you can see that topology is a lot more relaxed. Okay, it looks better. Okay, and of course you can Dynamesh, but what if I need to keep my subdivision levels? What if I have UVs on this? You can't use Dynamesh, right? So you got to think, I'm giving you scenarios where you're going to run into this. You can't use Dynamesh for everything, right? Dynamesh is also really the goal of Dynamesh was beginning stages of sculpting. So think about different scenarios here too. Okay? So what I'm done is I've relaxed, okay? And now I'm telling it reproject, okay? We get back our pinch, okay? But I haven't divided up, but you can see how good of a stroke I have. So think about this. I had a version of this where I was at 6.2 million and it didn't look that good. And I'm still sitting at 393,000. The only reason I'm talking about this is because our habits were to, well, just divide up because we can divide up, which is great, and we can. But if we have something at our disposal where I don't need to divide up, why divide up? What's the point? Okay, I don't have to if I don't really need to, right? And right now, we're talking specifically about VDMs, right? So if I'm going to use VDMs with Dynamesh, which we absolutely can do, you're going to have pretty dense Dynamesh now, okay, to be able to use the VDMs and keep quality that you want, which is might not be the workflow you're looking for, okay? So you got to think about it. It all depends on what we're trying to do here. Okay, so going back to making this, right? So this is why I'm doing this, because also whatever we put in this plane, okay, is going to be in the brush. Okay, so this is very important to understand. Okay, so I now have this nose here, right, where I've kind of made a little bit, this one has still the stretched topology. So let me smooth this out just a little bit in here. Okay, perfect. Works for me. And then I'm going to do that reproject. Just get a little bit more topology in there. Okay, and then now if I want to divide up, I've got a little bit even distributed polygons through there as well. So now I can just, again, the goal of this brush in here is just try and get some form, general shape and form through here. I would not look at using the VDMs to just straight up sculpt nothing but the details, right? It's really about, okay, this is definitely going to be a nose. Then when I draw it on my surface, I can see that this is a nose. Okay, that's my goal here. Right, and let's put a little indentation in here. I'm going to actually walk down so I can push in faster through here. And then smooth that out a little bit in there. Come up a level now. Now let's accent that indentation a little bit right in there. Yeah, there. I don't know. It's my nose, man. Okay, so we're moving along here, and I'm starting to sculpt and get what I want this nose to start looking like, right? So the beauty about now these VDMs is undercutting, right? So we are making an undercut right now. Well, at least I am doing undercuts right now. So for those that don't know what an undercut is, everything I just sculpted right there is an undercut. This whole part of the nose right here is an undercut. So what I mean by that is there is nothing underneath it here, right? Through here, there's an opening. So there's an undercut before it touches the surface again. Okay, so this is important. This is what the VDMs are going to give us that normal just alphas are not going to give us. Right? So this is really important for me because it's going to open up some examples and some scenarios for us. This is just, okay, this nose is getting a little ridiculous. Let's dial it back a little bit. Okay, there. That's good for me. Good enough. All right, so now I just want to sculpt. Okay, so what I want to do now is turn this into a brush, right? I want to have this to be able to be used on the surface. Okay, so all you have to do is this. All right, and this is what I would recommend for you, right? Since we already have a brush, okay, everyone, water break, get your water. Okay, so now that I have this, I'm going to go to my brush and I'm going to click on this Chisel 3D. Okay? And this chisel is already set up with these brushes. Now, something I want you guys to be conscious of and be aware of here is we've got this chisel brush where you can see it looks like planes and things popping out of the plane because that's pretty much what we're doing. But one thing I want you guys to take a look at, come over here to the left part of the screen. You see that in the alpha channel, there is an alpha that looks like the nose, right? But then it has 3D in the top left corner. That is an indicator to you that this is not just an alpha. This is a Vdm brushes, i.e. a 3D Vdm brush. Okay? So this is super important to understand. When you're making these brushes, you should always have that in the alpha palette, okay? And I don't know how many times, I don't care how many times I teach this. Sometimes you guys just are, you know, we're not paying attention to what we're doing, and we forget about this. Okay, so what I can do now is add this to this brush. Okay, so I can say B for brush, and I can say create insert. Right, which this is also found in the brush palette, this create menu that I already previously opened. So right here, create insert, and it's asking me, hey, do you want to append to the existing or make a new brush? Well, this brush is set up, so I'm just going to append it, okay? And then now, right, I want to have this in here, right? So you can go this route, but I prefer just going brush in here and going from mesh, right? That's what I prefer doing. And then now you can see we've got that in here, and you can see this alpha is looking a little bit like my nose, and then you can see the 3D in the top corner, and now every time I draw out, I get that nose. Now, the things that we need to understand again for this. Let's go to this sphere. This has got subdivision surfaces. So when I draw out on a rounded surface, okay, that becomes important. And you see the front of the nose, right? See how it's getting a little more faceted? That all comes back to what I was talking about. If you, when you're making these brushes, if you're going to make them very stretched topology, that's what you're going to have when you go to draw it out on the surface you're going to draw out. And so now there's a relationship. What you did with the plane is now going to be used in conjunction with, in this case, the sphere. And this sphere is only sitting at 393,000 polygons. So if we do the nose like that, okay, and I divide up, and then I draw, you can see you don't get the faceting now when you draw out because I'm just sitting at 1.5 million polygons, right? So this nose has got a little bit more topology there to be created from. Right, so this is why for me I'll spend a little bit of the extra time when I'm making these brushes to kind of make my topology as clean as it can be, depending on what I'm trying to make here. All right, so that becomes a very important step for me. Now, look up here. Look up here. And Lisa needs braces moment. Okay, this is important to understand as well. I kept saying this, what you sculpt in this shows up in the brush. So i.e., if we did say something up here, okay, that has that, and maybe I'll do a negative. Watch this. Even if I say the brush that I like to use sometimes, especially for environment stuff, is the slide brush. It's a very cool brush, this brush right here. Right, but on a plane, right, you're not really doing much but just sliding the topology. Right, if you don't turn that on, you can't even really, you can tell right there, but not right here, you can't tell really right there very easily that I did something to the surface. Right, so here it looks fine. But if we go back now, let's grab this brush again, okay, and then I'm going to say brush from mesh. Now I have it, and you can see this one's got parts in it and this one doesn't. And now if we come back to this and now we redraw this out, look at the difference. Right? You can see that's just the nose. Look at that right there. That's ugly. Right? Because what's happening is here is when you guys made the brush, okay, you're on a flat plane, and I'm just moving that along a flat plane. The minute you bring in now a curved, right, that movement is going to do that. So it's going to create that in that gap right there. It's got to create that gap for you. Because you told it that, hey, when you're drawing out, take these vertex points and slide them up. And so by sliding it up, it's doing that as it's going along a curved point. Does this make sense? Do my silly little hand gestures make sense? So This is why you're getting this. So i.e., as an example, some things that might happen that we probably need to go do and fix. Here's another brush that was made by my good friend Thomas, right? You can see here, see this kind of outline that's in this brush, right? And then you'll see it in other ones. See like that outline right there. And I think he's got some in this ear. Yeah, see like that right there? Everyone can see that, right? So here, let me see if I can put something shiny on. There. That right there, right? I don't want that. I just want only the ear. Okay? Jimmy, wait. I'm reading your question. My nose, my rules. That could be a great t-shirt. I love it. You don't understand why topology on VDMs is important? Yeah, it's VDM, which is for Vector Displacement brushes, is important. 3D texture in topology. I'm not following when you're saying 3D texture. Are you talking about normal mapping? Because normal mapping is just at a render state. We're not rendering right now. We're actually sculpting. So if you can elaborate on that, Jimmy, what you're trying to say. The topology is just important because I'm drawing out on top of the topology. So what the topology is in is going to make a difference. So watch. As an example, okay, you see this ear, okay? We can try and clean this ear up. And this is how we might do it. So I'm going to go brush. I'm going to say to mesh. And I get this ear now. Right? And you can see the imperfections as I scroll around in here. Right? You can even see all the topology that's been manipulated with here, right? Okay? So, what you can start doing is saying, okay, how about I mask off the parts that's important to me, right? And he also did some inner in here. Maybe I'll blur it a little bit. Okay, and then down here, in my deformation, there's that morph to grid. So when I do that, it's going to morph, and you can see the grid is back to being nice. Right, and now I can do a slow transition through here, because I still have the mask. I didn't take the mask off. Right, so now I have this slow transitional part through here. Okay, now let's look what this ear does when we go draw it out on the surface with that, just that quick change. Okay, so I'm going to say brush. Okay, from mesh. Okay, now that I have that, we'll go here. There's the original ear. Okay, and now I'm drawing it out. And you can see I don't have that little squared part there, or a little squared part there, or that one there, or there, right? I have just the ear. That's it. Right? So if we go back to this, okay, when we drew this out, right? We had all this noise. So all I care about is the nose part. Like that part. That's all I care about. Right? And maybe even get a little bit more of the nose. Maybe something like that, and I don't want that part. Okay, so I'll inverse this, maybe blur the masks a little bit. Okay, and then now do morph to grid. Right, and then now this is what I have in the morph to grid point happening. So I'm going to smooth this out a little bit there, just to make a little bit better transition for myself as well. Right, and then now I'm going to say, again, brush from mesh. We get this nose again, right? And it's just being added to the end here. Going back to this, right? If we remember, we had that nose with a disaster, and now we don't, right? We're back to having just the nose. Okay, there is no need for back face masking for this, for making these brushes, okay? So here are some rules. It's a great segue to some rules. Right? So I am starting with a plane. That is the number one rule, guys. You can't have thickness when you're making these brushes. Number one, no thickness. Period. Can't have it. No thickness. Okay, that's rule number 1. In fact, here, let me pull up something here. Note that. Hold on. I'm going to get something here so we can make the rules here. Okay. When you guys are making these brushes, I'm sure some people, I'm surprised I haven't seen the questions yet, but I know some of you have probably been thinking it. There are some cardinal rules to this, all right? Because we're making a VDM, and in order to do this, we have to know what's going on, okay? So, number 1, okay? Flat plane, okay? No thickness. I'm going to put this in caps, okay? So, backface masking isn't needed for when we're making these brushes because it's a thin plane, right? There is no thickness. So backface masking is not needed for this, okay? This plane, right, must be equal topo, okay? So what that means, everybody, what this means is, number 3, no Sculptress Pro. Okay, so you can't use Sculptress Pro. It might help if I spelled Sculptress correct. Okay, you cannot use Sculptress Pro when you're making these brushes. Yeah, the chat is, I see all the chat though, by the way. By the way, I see the Facebook chat, the YouTube chat, and the Twitch chat all in one. I just might have missed your question because questions cycle through. And I'm seeing all your guys' questions funneled to one location for me. So Killer King Crow, go ahead and throw your question up, and I'll get you. Okay, so number 1, no Sculptress Pro. The next thing some of you probably would have been thinking of is Zremesher. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You're grounded. Okay, excuse me. No Zremesher either. Can't use it. Right? You can't do things that are going to change the topology. The way this feature is working is the only way we're able to make this a 3D alpha / VDM brush is that we know you started with a plane that has equal distant polygons across the entire plane. And we're doing something special, having an understanding for that with the other thing, right? That's so important to understand. On the plane itself, you cannot use Sculptress Pro and you cannot use Zremesher. This is why I was spending the time showing you guys those relaxed features. Okay, I wanted you to understand that you're going to get to points in your topology where, darn it, I just don't have enough topology to get what I want, so I want to relax. Okay? So, this is something to know. These are 4 major things here so far that you know. Okay? And then number 5, we just finished talking about whatever is on the plane is in the brush. Right? So whatever you guys sculpt on there, even if it's just topology sliding, that's going to be in the brush when you draw it out. Okay? So you gotta think of that stuff. You gotta be conscious of that and understanding. Okay, so these are 5 things you gotta understand about when you're making these brushes, okay? So, going back to, let me catch up with the questions that were coming through. Hold on. Let me get my mouse over there, my other monitor. Okay, for more topology, can you use Zremesher instead of projecting? Not for these brushes, so Damon, yeah, that probably answered your question. However, people, there are techniques here that we're going to start getting into where you can use Sculptress Pro and you can use things like Zremesher. That's how even some of these more difficult surfaces, like especially if you look at, if we go back to brushes and grab this brush, like this eye, like if you guys really look at this, right? This is a full sphere with a half sphere inside it, like, right? So there's a sphere sitting inside of a dome. Like, you got to think now, that's sculpted from a plane. What? How did you do that? Right? There are techniques you got to think about that you'll be able to do with this. Okay, so it's important to think about now using ZBrush the way I like to call it, like it's an onion or like a cake. You're layering one feature on top of another feature, right? Is what you're doing. Okay, so let's look at some more techniques here and some things that you guys will be able to do to go across this. Okay, so let me go. I'm just catching up with your questions. Hold on. Masking is affecting both sides because you don't have backface masking turned on for your masking brush. So this is a great tangent. Okay, this is definitely for you guys, 80s style. The users. I always feel like it's like the Ultimate Warrior from the 80s too. The users. Okay, so in here, in fact, I don't know, remember if it's until here we go. Thick plane, okay? So someone is bringing up in one of the chats, okay? It's in the Twitch chat? Yeah, the Twitch chat. When you guys have sculpting, right, and as you sculpt on a surface, it's going to sculpt the backside if it's very thin like this. So you can see how thin it is, okay? So what this user is bringing up is the fact what you can turn on for brushes is in the brush palette, you can turn on this auto masking, and you can say backface masking, right? So that when I sculpt on here, nothing's happening on the back anymore. Okay? Now, what that user also brought up is the problem is when you go to mask, though, right, it's also masking on the back. Okay? This is because you don't have backface masking turned on for this brush. This is a brush-by-brush feature. Okay? So if you want to make sure you don't have masking, you want to have masking also on, you can see it's on. You can see when I hold the control key, it's off. Right? On, because that's the clay buildup. That's my masking brush. So I need to hold the control key, then click it, and then now when I go to mask, you won't have a mask on the back. Right? So that's why you're getting a mask on the front and the back. Okay? So hopefully, I believe that was the question you were asking. Okay, so I'm going to move on to, let me know if that's answering the question. I'm going to move on to Kill a King Crow. Okay, I finally figured out how to create a bevel or outline for like a medallion. I was wondering, is there an easier method for creating a masked outline to create like a bevel or a raised lip? I'm keeping your neighbors awake. Oh, great! Not a surprise. Listen, I'm not even. This is my just normal voice. I got a deep, loud, normal voice. My voice just projects. Okay, so Kill a King Crow. There are a lot of different ways you're gonna be able to do a bevel. In all honesty, okay. Do you have to have, hold on, do you have to have front camera when keeping the result? No. It's not camera plane dependent, that backface masking, it's mesh dependent, it's looking at normals. No, great, Jimmy's bringing up something great. Before I move on, sorry, Kill a King. Jimmy's asking a great question on Jimmy Anime All. Okay, so can the plane be anywhere in ZBrush space flat, or does it need to be in 0 axis? It 100% needs to be in 0 axis because we are analyzing the plane for being at 0 axis. So if you have it somewhere else in Z depth, you're gonna get like a box out, right? So if we take another plane like this one, right, to just give you an idea, if I pull this away like that, Guys, those are vertex movements. That, even though it's just a plane movement, that's a vertex movement from the distance that we're calculating. We're trying to calculate from the center of the world. So if I was to sculpt something on this, right, I'm just going to do something real quickie here. Nothing important. Yeah, rocks. Yeah. Okay. And then we say, all right, chisel, brush, from mesh, right? So now this is at the end. When I'm drawing it out, okay, you got to be thinking about those. So you got to be conscious of this, especially when you go on a rounded surface. You might get like a box float, okay? So I would make sure that when you're going to make these, that they're sitting at the center of the world. That's another reason why I'm just starting with my plane. Now, to kill a crow's question. Okay, this is to me a multiple part question that you're asking. Okay, and I'll come back to your other questions. Let me get Kill a Crow because he or she's been waiting. Okay, method for creating like a beveling or a chamfering or raised surface. So this is a multiple question for me because are you dealing with a surface that's low polygon or are you dealing with a surface that's not low polygon? Because a low polygon surface is pretty easy. Okay? So if we just did say something like this and say that this is your medallion, make mesh, right? Low polygon's an easy one. You can switch to Z Modeler, hover over an edge, hold the spacebar, and just switch to bevel. And then I want the complete edge loop, and then I have a bevel. Right? So easy enough. And when I divide, that's going to round automatically. I don't need to add the roundness in there. I know it's going to round when I divide this. Okay? Now, you guys could also have something a little more different. Let's do this. Hold on, let's do this. And I'm going to do a Polygroup flat island. And yes, this is yet again another tangent. Tangent alert. Okay? Right? And then let's say we have a surface. Let's turn on dynamic. Let's go ahead and crease it. Right? So now you guys have, say, something like this. Right? So, number one, you've got a surface here, right? That has topology. Okay? So right here in the crease part, there's a bevel. So even if I had no polygroups, I hit this, you can see I get a bevel right there. And what it did is it used the crease area. Okay, because those edges were creased. However, we are all going to do different things. Some of us, when we're working, we might do, okay, instead of that, we prefer to be working, I know it's been brought up already, in Dynamesh mode. So let's even give it a little bit more. Let's say even something like that. Right? So we've got this Dynamesh mode. Okay? And I've got multiple polygroups here. Right? I got a polygroup on the bottom, polygroup on the top, and a polygroup here. Right? So as a user, you want to manipulate this in here. Okay? So what we can do is same thing here in the crease, but instead of using creasing, I'm going to bevel based upon polygroup. So you can see I'm adding a beveling here. Right? So this is going to be dependent upon the topology. Right? So this has got triangles in it. Right? So there's triangles there, and that's why you're getting what you're getting. I'm not really concerned, though, because I have polygrouping. So down here, I can say, well, I want a polygroup, right? So I can do a polish by groups, right? And go even stronger. And then look, that cleans up all nice, and it's still a Dynamesh version of that. Okay, now, something else that's not getting as used as much, and especially what we added in this last version of 2020, which is nice, some more masking options. So we have this, okay, where we have two groups. You could just do this. You could come here in the masking, and you can say right here, turn off border and crease, and click this button. And now the only vertex points that are masked are those points right there. Right? So you can see a very thin mask. So if I inverse it, you can see that, right? And then now you can mask that, and then now you can even do anything you want. You could do polishes, so there's a nice polish of that, and then there. That's now got like a little raised, rounded surface, and it's just quickly using masking ability, right? You guys can even, when you do that initial mask, right, in the masking, you have the abilities to grow the mask, right? So you see I'm growing it, right? And now that you got a mask, you can control W, and you got a polygroup even now, right? So then there you go, you got a polygroup here. And then now, if you go deformation, polish by groups, right, you're going to get that same thing that I was getting before. So this is what I keep saying. It's like a cake. Nom, 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 or like an onion. You can just keep going and going and going and going here, right? So this is how there's different ways to be able to go about creating the bevel, right? And in this case, I also like to use, I'm a big fan of the trim brushes. This is a big fan. I'm a big fan of this brush to create something like that. Right? So I'll use this brush to do that. So in this case, this one's pretty easy because it's round. So because you brought a medallion, I would just do a radial symmetry and have my points up even higher than that. And now I can sculpturally just put that bevel in there. And then sculpturally put that bevel in there. Go maybe bigger on the bottom. There you go. Right? So this is a great way to just be able to, look, you can change everything on this. Okay? So killing a king, kill a king crow. Hopefully that answers your question. But now I'm catching up with the other questions. An alpha is not going to be the same as what we've been talking about. That's what we're going to talk about right now. You can't use Sculptress Pro with Vdm brushes. It's not, you can't. You can't use it to build the Vdm brushes, what we've been talking about, and you can't use it just to make the brush. It doesn't work. I'm just catching up the questions. When using deformation morph to grid, the sculpt disappears. Yeah, it's disappearing because we're starting over. You're starting from scratch now, right? So when you grab this, right, and you come down here to deformation, in essence, we're morphing back to a plain grid is what we're doing. Let's see, so this is the ones I think, yeah, I was sculpting on. Right, I started with a plain grid here, right? So when you click this morph to grid, it's deleting the sculpt in essence. It's going back, it saves a morph target of the flat plane. So this is like this. This is where I like to use these brushes. So as an example to get, maybe this will help you. You can store a morph target, right? So i.e., let's say this guy, I store morph brush. And now I want to create some kind of character. So I'm gonna grab this chisel brush and let's find a nose. I like that nose there. So I'm going to put that nose right there. Oh yeah, nice big snosh. Then I'm going to do like elf ears, and I'll put those right there. Oh, I want it on both sides. That would be helpful. So I could sculpt it again, or old school, do this, and then do a, whoops, not a resim, sorry, smart resim. And then now you can do stuff like that as well. Okay, so this was something that was in our article that I saw people talking about, right? So you have that ability. Okay, so I'm going to turn symmetry on from here on out. We need some eyes. So let me see. Let's see what's in this brush. See if there's some different eyes in here. What's this one? Yeah, there. Such a sad, sad guy. I'm gonna put these eyes. Looks like he's like been punched in the face. Looks like he's been in a boxing. Adrian! Adrian! Let's just go with the different eyes here. Let's go with the eyes that are in here. More human-esque. Something like that. Nice. Funny stuff now. Okay, and then let's do the open mouth. Okay, this is another beautiful part about the VDMs. Ah. And then he's got a mouth sack in there too. It's open mouth, right? Now, what we've done here is we've stored a morph target. So it's going to help us do things, i.e., I can switch to the morph brush, okay, and I can use this as an eraser. So I can say, you know what, I messed up on those eyes, and then there you go. So that's what's happening with the plane. It remembered the state of this model when we stored the morph, okay, and then that slider is just putting it back to the flat plane. So this is a great way for me to just like here, take bites out of his ears, right? Or I'll use this a lot for, especially if I want to come in here and say, oh, let's get rid of that mouth. Okay, come in here and say brush this, and then let's throw some horns on them. And then let's say one of the horns needs to be damaged, right? So now I switch to the morph brush and just damage only the one. Right? But then they're both there. Right? This is a great technique. I'd strongly recommend this. If you're going to use these VDM brushes, to use this. Store morph target and then start going. Okay, you're working $25,000. Model. I'm just following up on the questions. Modeling during the apocalypse. Nice. Modeling during the apocalypse, Sean. Nice. You betcha. Glad to have. That's what I'm here for. Is answering these questions, people. I want to make sure you guys are getting as much help as you can. Because let's face it, we're all home now doing the different things. You got to remember a rounded bevel. Realistically, all you need to do is just do a bevel, and we have subdivision levels. When you subdivide, it's going to round as well. Or just use inflate. Okay, so what happens if one changes the topology of a plane when creating a VDM? It's not going to be a VDM. You're just going to make a regular alpha with no undercuts, Jimmy. I didn't mirror and weld, Jimmy, because I have subdivision levels, and mirror and weld's not going to work. I look like Balboa? I do? No, Sculptress Pro is not the same as Dynamesh. Oh, well, welcome, niece, to the ZBrush world. No, Dynamesh and Sculptress Pro are not the same. The brush mod, the brush what mod doesn't work for you, Mohammed. Can you expand upon what you're saying there? Hello, niece. Okay, so the big difference here is, okay, let's grab something else to sculpt on. Let's grab the dog. Okay, so the difference here between the two, okay, I get it. Okay, is I've got subdivision levels I can sculpt, right? Now, if I delete the subdivision levels, right? And I'm going to want to start working with the Sculptress ability. Okay, so I want to have the ability to, as I sculpt here, right? You can see as we go along here, you're adding topology here, right? You're creating something that's pulling again on mesh. So as an artist sculpting, think about this in clay. You're pulling so much clay that almost you're going to start pulling the clay off and pull the clay away from the model. Then you wouldn't be able to sit there and sculpt what you just pulled off. So that's what's happening. You're pulling on this clay. I'm going to reset all my brushes. Okay, so Sculptress Pro is going to give you the ability where the clay is in essence being added as I am sculpting, right? So no matter where I go with this brush, as I'm sculpting, the clay is just being added. Like, think about it as I just keep layering clay on top of clay on top of clay. It's not like it's layering and then kind of pulling it like this. It's just layering it on top of it, right? So which is nice. So when I do something like the clay buildup and I start sculpting, you can see I still have nice tessellation and buildup in here. If I turn this off and do that same thing, you're getting this. Okay, and so what we did with Dynamesh is just retopologizing on the fly after you apply. So as an example, let me give you some prime examples here. Okay, I want to re-Dynamesh this, and I don't want project on. Okay, and then there you go. This is redoing the entire thing, number one, right? Where Sculptress Pro does not do that. Right, and then I'm getting clean here. So we're going to get a little bit more resolution in here and do this, and then there you go. So there's nothing saying you guys can't combine these. I can have Sculptress Pro on and start sculpting and pushing in the surface and then re-Dynamesh it, right? You can combine these, okay? But let me show you now examples where one might be beneficial over another. Okay, so I'm going to grab... Let's grab that anime head. Okay, so number one, Sculptress Pro is going to allow us to do this. Pretty much delete the ear, right? And then I re-Dynamesh. Delete the ear and re-Dynamesh. Re-Dynameshing won't allow you to do this, right? So if I try to do this with just Dynamesh, I have to smooth, 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 re-Dynamesh. Smooth, 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 re-Dynamesh, right? So you can see the difference, right? Okay, but where it's really going to be very noticeable, okay, and right now I'm in Dynamesh mode for this mesh, and I'm using Sculptress Pro. But if we start grabbing on brushes, okay, let's say something like the snake hook as an example. Okay, you start pulling on this, right? You can start pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling. And then do something like that, and you can see I'm still got topology that I can continue to go back and sculpt and even pour more on. I can get to the point where I can separate, and I've just made two pieces of topology now. Right? So this is one benefit. Okay? Is being able to have Sculptress to do this. Right? If I don't have Sculptress and I use that same brush, see what you get? Like, look at the topology. It's night and day. Like, that becomes a disaster compared to that. Right? Even if I was to smooth this, this is what I'm going to get. Right? Doesn't make sense. So, another great example from this, okay, is if we switch to, say, the spiral brush. Okay, so if you guys spiral, does a great job. Beautiful spiral. Look at, see how much it's really destroying the topology? With Sculptress Pro, I don't have to worry about that. Right? Because I've got tessellation happening through there. And then I can even smooth it back. Right? And now I'm only tessellating locally that area. Right? So this is benefits to me for using something like Sculptress Pro. Like, this became a very huge brush for me, being able to use Sculptress Pro like this. And then there's times where I'm you know, I just want to fix or destroy something, right? Just think about if you guys have ever done something like this to your meshes. Let's see if I can even make it happen. I'm gonna try and make a mess up. I want to see if I can get worse. Turn Sculptress Pro off for the smoothing. Okay, so, you know, something like this, right? Let's just say you were in Dynamesh mode. To fix this, the easiest thing to do would be just to go into Sculptress Pro mode. And then go with the big brush size, and then just smooth it back, and we delete it. There, done, and then re-Dynamesh. Right? This is the kind of stuff that I also love with Sculptress Pro, is being able to do this. Okay? And David, yes, you can transfer UVs between the meshes of the same UV or the same vertex UV order. Just gonna drink water. We don't allow you to take like a mesh that say, let's just say, make the numbers easy, 500 polygons with all those UVs, and take that UV and put it on a mesh that's 1,000 polygons. But we allow you to transfer from the same mesh to the next mesh. You can either just import it on top of itself, and we'll bring in the UVs, or you can use the plugin UV Master, and you would turn on this use existing UV scenes, and then you would unwrap, and then that'll give you also copy and paste ability. So there's copy and paste here as well. So David on Facebook, not sure if that's answered your question or not. The Morph brush is not working for you because if you remember, the Morph brush works based also by vertex points. So if you're using Dynamesh, the Morph isn't going to work. If you're using Sculptress Pro, the Morph's not going to work. But that's where other brushes that we created. Again, this is everybody. There's an answer here for everything that you guys are asking for sure, right? So someone's brought it up. Even though that Morph thing that I showed you, there's other ways to go about this, right? Even if I was to take this, right? And I say, okay, I went and grabbed this chisel, and then I put, yes, those on there, and I'm going to start putting some scales. Whistling so important. Whistle while you work. Okay, so now you got this, and then you're starting to look at this and go, okay, it's pretty cool. I like the scales for the hair kind of thing going on, but I don't know about the horns anymore. Okay, we're recording undos, right? So there's nothing stopping you guys from going backwards to when you didn't have any of that and going, okay, there's none of that. Holding down Control and making a dot, right? So you want to have nothing there, right? So now when I go back, everything comes back, right? And now you guys could switch to the history recall brush, right? And you can start, in essence, going back to the point on this when it didn't have anything. And this brush, though, does not work symmetrically. So now he's a balding guy, right? Because what this brush is doing now, it's looking at that point of interest, and that point of interest didn't have the horns on it, right? And then this is how you can go backwards and say, okay, I got rid of the horns, but I like what was happening here, right? Oh, let me clean that up a little bit, and then now come back into this, grab these, and then now just continue that process that I was doing. And now maybe I just want this instead of the horns. because I liked the cool hair look it was giving my character. And then this is the beauty of VDMs. I am getting undercutting. So you see all that? I'm getting all that undercutting, right? So it's creating a very realistic hair where it definitely looks like it's pieces, right, of, I don't know, like little spiky hair. Like he's made of some, I don't know, some cactus or things like that. So the thing you got to understand why these VDMs are so powerful is I'm dealing with a 3D VDM. Whereas if I just did brush, can we say to mesh? All right, and let's just say brush, and then we'll use the clay brush. All right, and then I say, all right, this is great. And I come here to alpha, and this is what some of you have been used to doing, right? And you can say grab dock here, right? You can even go to the alpha, and you can say from mesh now, right? And then now I've got this. I can say how big a map size do I want, and you can say I can move the model around, reposition my alpha where I want it, and then I say OK. Okay, and now you see that there's this alpha here, right? So if we go back to this now, and I undo what I've done here, and now if I go to use this brush, right? Whoops, let's put it on drag rectangle, and I start drawing it out. We need a lot more intensity. You know what? Let's use the standard brush to give it a little more power. So drag rec. And then we're going to use that run. Right? So you see this undercutting with the 3D? Right? What I want to do is now I'm going to make the alpha from mesh. I'm going to back that up a little bit, say OK. Right? And you can see that's 3D, right? Because I'm doing a from mesh ability. So when you guys go to draw this alpha out, so you're getting an undercut, right? The 3D. Now, if I was to take this same thing and just say, okay, take this, I'm going to come out of perspective mode, alpha, and I say grab dock. See, I get that alpha. But you see it doesn't have the 3D in the top at all. So when I come now back to this guy and I do that same thing, you can see the difference. Right? You see there's no undercutting. See, it's just pulling on the topology now. That's the big difference here, where the VDMs are giving me these undercuts. Right? Because even if I want to take something, even if we take here, like we take this dog, we divide up the dog, give it a little bit of love, throw some chisel on that, and let's grab this one, and I say, nice, looks good, but what I want to do is make this go along a brush, like this, okay? But what I want to change, right, is the stepping. So I'm going to go to lazy mouse, right, and turn that on. And then I'm going to say this lazy step, let's put it to 1. And now you see I get a gap between them. And that gap is consistent. Right? So this is a great way. So as an example, in the other one, there are these, right, that has this. If you were to then change this into dots, right, you can get stuff like that. But then I can say, well, let's change the stepping. Let's go 0.8 instead. And then now you can have something like that. Right? And then every one of these brush strokes, there's an undercut. See? That's happening there. So if you look down the line of the dog, there's an undercutting there that's happening. Right? Which becomes very beneficial for me to be able to go. And I'm just catching up with questions again. So Damon, you downloaded a custom brush. Well, where from? And you can't use Sculptress? Well, I don't know. I would have to see the brush. And that brush is probably made in a way, or the brush type is made in a way where Sculptress Pro can't be used with it. Yes, auto masking cannot be on. So the auto maskings will not work with Sculptress either. You have to turn the auto masking off. So if you have a custom brush, Damon, that you've downloaded with auto masking, you got to turn the auto masking on. It won't work. Sculptress Pro won't work with auto masking. The live feeds, Randy, are available on the Twitch that you're on right now, and they're on our YouTube channel. So a lot of people prefer to go rewatch them on YouTube because it's easier to search for them. So you can watch them again on the YouTube channel. So you're asking a question about symmetry, working on 4 sides of a cube at once. Right, so if I have, here, we've got a cube in here. Right here. And then you're working symmetrically. Let's just do this. Right, so you got symmetry. So if you want to work on all 4 sides, so in the transform, you got to tell it you also want to work on the Z. Right? And then you're working on the Z. But if you're trying to work on this and this, like all 4, like radial is the only way to do that. Right? So I would do a radial Y, and then you'd have to move this to something like 4, and then now it's going on all 4 sides. So if that answers your questions, Frozer 748, it looks like. Man, my resolution, I have to make my resolution so big on my other monitor. It's really bad. It's a Thomas Whittlebach brush. Well, then, yeah, he uses a lot of back face masking and things like that. Then that is 100% your problem. You got to turn it off if you want to use it with Sculptress Pro. Where can you learn Zbrush? Someone says me. I love it. Thanks. 100%. Obviously, I'm a developer. I help make the software. We are going to be on this channel every day, so you can see in the. Let's see, where's my, no, this way. You can see over in that bottom corner, tomorrow's Joseph Druss, Solomon is Thursday, Joseph Druss is again going to go on Friday, Dice K is going to go on Monday, and then I'm going again on Tuesday and next Thursday. So every day you're going to have one of us on here, so you can learn from us. This is why we're doing this. This is what we want. We want you asking me questions. I can answer them for you. You know, we're just living the dream right now. Okay, of course, our YouTube channel is a phenomenal resource for you. Okay, but obviously there are other things like Z Classroom is another great place to go, and this is all free. So if you're coming to our website, Pixologic.com, you can go right here, learn ZBrush, and then this is how you can get to the online documentation. You can find out about schools. You can find out about third-party training. And right here is Z Classroom. And we are currently working on adding more videos to this. So there's the Getting Started guide. So you can just go with this and just go through this. There's 14 little lessons in here. There's 12. Like you can literally just do this little shark lesson that Solomon did. And you should get the basics of ZBrush. And then you chew on a little bit more. Right? So this is another great resource for you, and we are working on adding more videos to us as we speak. So besides doing these streams, and we've got other artists streaming on here all the time, right? I'd recommend this as another resource. Okay, if you want also help, there's many places to get help. One place you guys could go to is Zbrush Central. You know, this is where I helped. I taught ZBrush myself, and this is a place I went and got help. I know there's a ton of amazing work that's being put up here, but there's stuff up here people are still asking for help as well, and I would encourage you to still do that. Put stuff up here and still say, hey, I need help with like this person right here. I know for a fact because I answered them. was asking for some help on their old man Batman. Okay, so you can post work here and ask for help too. And there's different categories. So if you go to categories right here, okay, you'll see that there's other categories you can go to as well. See, there's ZBrush help and support right here as well. Z scripting help. So there's other forms for you to go through in here as well. Okay, so this is another location. Jimmy, I would just go with the Chisel 3D brush because I've set up some other things on that brush to just make it work. Awesome. You don't have to. The Chisel's 3D brush is based upon the layer, single layer type, but there are other things turned on that I've done to make this brush. It wasn't just grab the layer brush and then went. I did a couple other little things. So when you're making your own VDMs, again, the best thing's going to be for you guys to do this, okay? Here. Look at me. Everybody watch. Look up here. Look up here. Caw. 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 Right? So, again, this is why I will make one of these, right? And then name it. Right? And then just duplicate it. Okay, and so let's just say this plane, let's just throw this on here. Let's divide it up. Let's throw these on here. So that's on that plane. Okay, on this plane, let's throw these on here. Let's divide this up. Okay, and this one, let's throw an eyeball on there. But let's turn it back on a drag rec, and let's make like that with a little eye next to it. Okay, and then here, let's do this one. Let's do the dot. Let's do this ear like this. Some kind of little repeating pattern. Okay, so number one, the things you guys want to be thinking about when you're doing this, all right, is your polygon count really doesn't need to be that high. Honestly, people, you could obviously keep dividing up, dividing up, dividing up. Like this is going to go to 16 million. You should never go that high when you're making a VDM brush, in all honesty. There is no need for that. Then you're just trying to make something super detailed to be put in a brush. You have to remember, whatever polygon count each one of these in, this is going to get stored in the brush. So you could start making a brush that's like 2 gigs, 3 gigs, 4 gigs, the more subdivision levels you go. Honestly, I never went higher than 263,000 polygons. In fact, in almost all of these, I hovered right here at 66,000. I think the only one I went higher with was this mouth and the dog nose. Like, so if we go brush and we say to mesh, see, this was 263,000. And see, don't forget, it does also subtract, it's getting the negative in the brush as well. The dog, I think, is where I went a little bit higher. Let's see, to mesh. Yeah, see the dog? I'm only at 1 million. See, there's 1 million. Right? That's the highest I went. That's enough. That's a dog nose. You can't tell me that's not a dog nose. If you give it to somebody, say, that's a dog's nose. Right? I really don't need all these details that I did. I was just doing it as a test as we were developing and building. Because I really thought it was great with all the undercutting for a dog nose. It'd be a great challenge and something to see how well I can get the details to come out when I drew it out. That's the only reason why I have this. Every other one of these are just sitting around 66,000 polygons or less. Right? So if I go, again, to mesh, right? See, this one's only 66,000 polygons. You can't tell me that's not an eye. You can totally tell that's an eye. It's an A. It's an A. Or a strawberry. I like it. Okay, so back to this. Right? So here, I'll even just append some of these now. Other one. Okay. So what we have here is a tool. Okay? And this tool is exactly what I did. So when I made this brush that I've been using this whole time that has 17 of these, the original brush really actually I think I had like 40 or 50 different pieces. It's just for us shipping the product, that brush started to get really big in file size, and it didn't make sense. Okay, so I stripped a bunch of the things I made. But you guys are making your own stuff, man. It's your world. It's your world. Okay? So this is the way you do it. You have all your planes here. Okay? Name them what you want to name them, because whatever you name them is what it's going to be when you are looking at them, right? And obviously these are planes. They're all facing the same way. It is creepy. This is pretty creepy, but it's pretty cool, right? And then now you're just going to look at that straight ahead, right? So all you got to do is rotate and hold the shift key so you're looking straight on that plane, right? And then go to brush, go to create, and you can see there's a button that says create multiple alpha. And what this is going to do, and this is why it's not that big of a deal, Jimmy, if you select the Chisel 3D brush and do what I'm showing you right now, watch what happens. Bingo, bango. Okay, now what we've done is we've replaced all the other ones with your new one now. Like, that's how easy it is, right? You don't need to really do it. It's just one button click. So this is why I'm saying when you're going to create your own Chisel 3D, I would absolutely just grab the Chisel 3D brush and then have a tool with all your planes that you want to use, and then just click that one button and bingo, you're off and running, right? So it doesn't matter, right, what's in there, whatever you click, and keep in mind how the plane is how it's going to be drawing out, right? So now this is going to be really ugly drawing out, right? So now it's going to, see, draw it on an angle. So how you pick up is important. That's why I said put the plane facing you. So make sure it's facing you. So I recommend coming out of perspective mode, right? And make sure while you're rotating, tap the shift key, and then you're looking at that. And then go to the brush, right? Multiple alpha, bingo, bango, and then there you go. All right, so that's how I would create a brush, because that's exactly how I created this brush. Okay, hold on. I'm reading Randy Dice's question. Can you transfer to a plane to create a VDM? Hold on. What I mean is, let's say you created something you like on a character, and we'll like to have that as a VDM later on a different asset. Well, that's a different brush, honestly. But you could, but you don't even need to do VDMs for that. That's a completely different brush, right? So if I did, let's say this guy, let's divide them up. Let's say brush. Let's do let's use something different this time. Let's use a little bit of slash. Let's say a slash. Okay, let's use a little bit of a blobbing just to make some imperfections in here. Yeah. Look at there. Happy little ugliness. We'll just add a little bit more to this. Okay. So looking at this, you can use an extractor brush down here. So there's 3 different types of extractor. There's the extractor, there's extractor dot, and there's an extractor drag rec. So the extractor is just allowing us to go, okay, my brush size needs to be big enough to capture everything in here. Okay, and then I'm going to hit the G key, and then I'm just going to go right along this area and then stop. And that creates this. So that's how you could rip something off if you want to. Okay? And now I got to find the right intensity. And there you have something like this. Now this isn't going to get undercutting though. So what you would want to do is then you could apply that, right, to a plane, right? So make that a poly mesh. And then now you've got most of the way, right? You got that going there. Right? And then you can switch to drag rec. This is why we have a drag rec version and a non-rec, drawn rec version. So I just need more intensity. Okay, so this is what you could do. And if I want to copy it to a different model, you can also use, although it's got to be in the same kind of space is going to be your problem, okay? So if we, here, let's load another version of him, because it's the same model. And go here, and let's insert. So this guy, right? I can go to this one, and I can use that history brush, okay, on this guy, and say I want that point, and then on this guy, I'm going to start projecting that into the other model. And there you go. So you can do something like that as well. There's just, it's so many, it really comes down to the scenario and what you're trying to make. And then I go, what technique is going to be the better one to go? So is it possible to work symmetrical on one side and then use the radial symmetry on the top? So you can basically sculpt symmetrically on one side, cube side, but also transfer the sculpted information on the four sides? No, something like that, you'd have to use a ray mesh. No, you're asking for multiple symmetries in essence. Because you're asking for four-side symmetry along with a radial symmetry, along with symmetry on the one side you're on as well. But you could do that with an array mesh. You can absolutely, Randy, use this. You could use this saved data on a plane and then turn that into a VDM. 100%, yes. So I just rip this off, right? And then I put it on a plane. So then you can sculpt that on a plane, right? So I made a brush somewhere here. Right, like this. Right, so this is on the plane. And then now you can even come through here. And because it's on a plane, you're going to turn this into VDM. You can start putting some undercut that you didn't even have in the original, that I didn't have in the original in here. So it needs a little relax. And then that can be turned into the VDM. Make sense? Hopefully that makes sense to you. Holy moly, it's already 2.5 hours. Okay, so my challenge would be to you guys is trying VDMs out. Let's remember some of our rules here though. Okay? Right? It's always got to be on a flat plane with no thickness. That plane must be equal topology, right? All the same size topology. You cannot use Sculptress Pro. You cannot use Zremesher on the planes. Okay? Because then you're changing the vertex chart. You can't do that. You have to, the only thing you guys can do is divide up. That's it. And whatever's on that plane, it's going to show up in the brush, even if it's a little movement, right? So that's why I was showing you ways to clean things up, right? Because if you start doing this, right, and the only thing you want now is the, bless me, is the raised portion. I can do this from the side, mask that portion off, right? And say I want that and that as well, and some of that. And say, I don't want any of that, right? I just want this part now. Right, so I'll blur that. Then I'll mask this so that's protected. And then this is where I would go to the deformers and morph to grid, because I just want to get rid of that. Right, looks like I had some mask still in here. Right, that way the only thing that's in the brush is that. Nothing else. Thank you. Sorry. No, you cannot use Sculptress Pros when making VDMs, and you can't use it when you're applying a VDM. Will not work. The brush you'll apply, but it's not going to be doing Sculptress Pro. Like, as if you look, when you switch to them, see Sculptress Pro is even grayed out. We don't allow it. And the reason why, everybody, you can't use Sculptress Pro when you're sculpting this, so if you just do this and you're just using Sculptress Pro on this, right? So if we delete these, you guys are changing all the vertex, right? When you do this, it's now triangulated. The algorithm that's making these VDMs possible, it's making it based upon it knew what the very first subdivision level was, that it was a flat plane with equally sized polygons. This is no longer equally sized polygons. Using the document to make tileable stuff is actually relatively easy. One thing that I would highly recommend getting, though, is a plugin that, here, let's get, so let's go to here. Let's go to support, resources, and ZBrush plugins, and scroll down. So there's more plugin group, there's more plugins here. If you scroll down, 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 here. So there's ones right here that you also can get. So Nano Tile is awesome for creating repeatable items. Okay, so this plugin I would use to do that. But if you're just going to use the document, the first thing, if you want something that's tileable, obviously it's got to be a squared document, right? So I would need to make, let's say 512 by 512. Then I resize that. Yes. And then here, let me make my document a different color. Right, so now I have this document. So now let's just say maybe, I don't know, I want to make some kind of fish skin thing. I don't know. Okay, this is big time tangent right now. This is old school ZBrush. Okay, so I'm just gonna grab a polysphere and I'm gonna draw that out. Put myself in edit mode. So I got a sphere. Okay. So what I want to do now is I'll go something, let's say, yeah, let's say that size. Okay, I'll turn perspective off so it just stays like this. Okay, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up, the oldest feature I think in here is marker. All right, I'm just going to mark this. And there's a reason for that you're about to see. Okay, and now I'm going to come out of edit mode. Okay, so I'm going to do actually a shift S. Then I'm going to come out of edit mode. And what I'm going to now be able to do, right, is tell ZBrush that I want to duplicate this. So I'm going to say, let's do this. Hold on. So right here, you see this marker? So when I tap, see I get that sphere? If I go in edit mode, I can shift S and then just keep shift S-ing to make, say, some spherical shapes like this. So I'm just clicking, again, shift S. I get used to this Windows keyboard. And I'm making some kind of maybe fish stand, so it's actually, I don't want it to be too perfect, because it's not 100% perfect in nature. So it's all right. The nano tile, though, you'll be able to get perfection if you want to. So what I'm doing is I'm doing snapshots of this sphere. I'm just clicking Shift S, as in Sam, every time, and then now I'm just doing a navigational move. All right, that's going to be a problem. That right there is going to be a problem. I clipped it right there accidentally. Okay, so I'm going to come out of edit mode. Okay, switch. I'm going to hold the tilde key, and then you can see what you get. Right, so this is tiling the document. So now I just need to fill in some more space. So now I go find that marker, tap, put myself in edit mode, and say, okay, I need to fill that one in. Now let me come all the way across. It's more time consuming, but this is going to work for me. So again, I'm just shift S-ing. S-ing. I'm just a shift S-ing away. Okay, come out of edit mode. Yes, switch. Tilde key. Okay, I gotta fill those holes. Go find my marker, tap, put myself in edit mode, navigation the sphere over, shift S. Okay, shift S, come out of edit mode, and double check and make sure I have what I want. Okay, I want to see if I can change that, yeah. Shift S, shift S, just change it up a little bit, shift S. So now I have this is tileable. And of course, if I had paint, this would be tileable. I can switch at any time to a normal map, right? So if I come out of edit mode, right, you can do a painting, right, with a normal map. And then now I can grab this. So in essence, all I got to do now is just come here and say, if I do a grab dock, there's the alpha, and if I do this grab dock, right, there's the normal maps that you can do. Okay, so now this is something that I can go use, and then it's tileable, right? So then I can get rid of all this. This is such an old technique. Super old. Divide this up. Let's put it on the standard. Let's start with drag rec. Here it is. Whoops. See what that looks like. And then there, that's what it's starting to look like. So now my intensity is probably too high. Okay. You know what? Let's make it a Z sub. So it pushes in the surface like that. Okay. And then now if you do a dots, you'll have this. Okay. But what I want to do is turn that into a roll. So I'm going to come into the strokes. I want to affect the stroke. Right? And then there you go. And now this is just repeating a repeating pattern. Right? If I'm going to do this, my preferred brush is the layer brush. It's the brush I like. So doing dots, grabbing this. Okay? And then now coming into here, turning on the roll, and you can do that. Right? And I can do a Z sub. Okay, you can do that. And why I like this too is this brush is the one that also works with the morph target, which you can get a little bit better results with that. right? And do things like that. So like I like to use that for some just skin of a reptile, or even adding a little feel of detailing there, right? So if I go deeper in with the intensity, it's going to go deeper in, right? So I like using the layer brush for that. All right. Unfortunately, I got to get going. Okay. Thank you for sticking with me for 2.5 hours. Okay. So there are other techniques, but I would say, well, unfortunately, we're out of time. But come back next week, and if we want, we can look at nanotile. Let's look at nanotile next week. That'll be the first thing I talk about next week. Okay, so next Tuesday, same bat channel, same bat time. Okay, 3 o'clock Pacific Coast time. All right, don't forget Joseph Druss is tomorrow, who's going to be doing the same kind of thing I'm doing. Okay, this video, all the videos are automatically saved. They're stored. You go to our YouTube channel, you'll have them there. And then also on the Twitch, they're also stored there. Okay, so I'm next week. Hi from Hong Kong, David. Next week I'll be streaming. I'll be streaming on Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesday will be more like this, where we're just talking about things, trying to figure things out. Thursday is going to be my continuation of my project with my sci-fi ship that I've been doing, and I'm trying to make a cool final poster image. Okay. So next week we will start with nanotile, and we'll talk about that, and we'll show examples and get you guys to understand that. Well, hi from Spain. Hope all is well. Everyone, please be safe. You know, with this crazy virus going around the world right now, it's just super scary, I'm sure, for a lot of you. And be safe, you know, and just stay at home with your family if you can. Right? So thank you for tuning in. Looking forward to see you again. Joseph Druss is tomorrow. Solomon Blair's Thursday. Then Joseph's again on Friday. Daisuke is on Monday. So we'll be doing these streams every week. Okay, so all of us will have the same days, except for me and Solomon will be alternating our Thursdays. But I will be every Tuesday now. Daisuke will be every Monday, and Joseph's right now doing every Wednesday and every Friday. Thank you. Have a delicious evening. Thank you for tuning in. I got to move on to my next item. Have a wonderful evening for those everywhere else in the world. Wonderful day. I am out. See ya!